Good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning into The Beacon. I'm your host, Kevin Wilson, and I appreciate you joining us this morning. Really excited to explore this topic, certainly relevant given the state of businesses and everything that has transpired over the last 12 months. We're going to be looking at the massive cash infusion that's come from the federal government by way of the SBA. We're going to look at banks and the lending landscape, and critically, we're going to put a face to the story and talk to folks that are running businesses right now and seeing how they're navigating the challenges that this last 12 months have really presented. Before we jump into introductions, let me just say, Dominion Payroll is proud to present the Beacon here. We also host a ongoing webinar series that you can find at dominionpayroll.com. Just hit that resource button at the top of the homepage. You can see all of our upcoming webinars where we help you understand just the alphabet soup that we've been swimming in for the last, 12 months. Everything from the ERC to FFCRA, EFMLA, CARES Act, all that fun stuff. We're there to help you understand and navigate all of those things. If you're unable to log in when we're live, please check out all of the recordings that we host there. And if you have a burning question that we can help you with, please reach out to questions@dominionpayroll.com and we'll do everything we can to get you an answer quickly and accurately. All right, now that the housekeeping is out of the way, I would encourage everybody, if you have questions for our guests today, drop those into the Q&A that you see at the bottom of your page. I will do my best to incorporate those into the dialogue today. And we'll try and get you an answer. But without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome our panel today. First up, really, it's a great pleasure to introduce Jenny Mitchell, Commercial Services Officer at Old Point National Bank. Jenny has 25 years of customer service and 10 years in the banking industry. Oh my gosh, where did that word go? Specializing in payroll, merchant services, vendor management, product management, sales, and support. Jenny, it's a pleasure to speak with you, and I really am eager to learn from sort of your expertise on this topic today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Next up, it's a pleasure of mine to introduce Hamuda Shami, owner of Don't Look Back Restaurant, 2 locations in Richmond. Hamuda is a long, 15 plus years in the industry. A fixture of sort of the Richmond dining scene, and just an all-around great operator. As somebody with a background in restaurants, Hamuda is one of the guys that I respect and look up to in terms of just the prowess of running a great operation and giving quality food and great experiences. So Hamuda, it's a pleasure to see you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Last but certainly not least, Brian Kirkpatrick is joining us. He's the Director of Finance at the Vale Brewery. Vale is celebrating its 5-year anniversary. Congratulations on that. I always love being able to run through interesting resumes on this show, and Brian may take the cake. Certified public accountant, so CPA, with a decade as a special agent with the FBI before becoming the director of finance for one of the best breweries this side of the Mississippi. Brian, it's great to have you here on the program. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Just as a quick heads up to our audience, Brian is going to have to step away for a minute right in the middle of our show, and we're just going to roll with that, just so no one's surprised if his screen drops out, but just a quick heads up there. So folks, as I said, thanks so much for being here. I think this topic is, just incredibly relevant, as we start to see a light at the end of this tunnel. We see, people are getting shots in arms. There's an eagerness to get out there and spend a little money and have some of those experiences that we've, have avoided for safety and practical reasons. I want to start off, I always try to do my best to introduce you all, but it's always best to hear it directly from you. So Jenny, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about Old Point National Bank and your path into sort of commercial services in the banking industry.
Sure. So Old Point National Bank is a community bank, which was founded back in 1923. in the Hampton Roads and now Richmond, Virginia region areas. I'm a commercial services officer, so I was actually an insurance agent for almost 10 years. And so I was looking for something different. I had gotten, I guess you'd say, burned out. So I came back to Old Point after many, many years. I was a teller right out of high school, so for a few years. So I came back. I knew Old Point was a wonderful community bank. And so I really enjoyed working for them previously. So when I came back, I actually started in the commercial services department as a temporary employee, trying to help with payment card security measures, so PCI.
Mhm.
So, and that my field grew basically. So I assist customers with merchant services, payroll services, corporate credit cards. And in that, we basically meet with our business clients. We not only look at those services, but we kind of sit and we learn about their businesses and we see if there's any other additional things that they could use, fraud protection, if they need additional bank accounts, loans, insurance, retirement services. So we try to get a great feel of what basically each person needs, each owner, each company, what they need and what they're looking for. So we really try to hold their hands through the process of starting a business and growing that business. And as they get bigger, because those needs change and everything, evolves as that business changes.
All right. Excellent. I think the value of sort of that local lender, that community-based bank is something that can oftentimes get overlooked in the world of banking, where the Chases and the Banks of America
Right.
dominate the conversation. But I think it's such a critical thing in the relationship that you build with local businesses is so important. Brian, I'd like to turn to you. And I know Vail is celebrating its 5-year anniversary. In that in the space of restaurant retail, developing a brewery line. Those first couple of years are tentative, and when you get to 5 years, I know that you guys have enjoyed so much success. I know on your release days, I frequently drive past the line that wraps around the block in the before times. So many congratulations on the success, but tell us how you what was your route into the world of being the chief financial officer of a brewery?
So my career in the FBI was bookended by working at Kiter in the tax department. So on the opposite end, when I finished at the FBI, I ended up back at Kiter and happened to have the Vail as a client, and just had a good relationship with the owners there. One of the owners, just like myself, went to William & Mary, so we had a connection there. And I, decided to combine my love for, numbers and analytics and take that to my love of craft beer. And, I can't think of another place that would allow me to do both. I love my job. I love going to work every day, even when it's at home now. But yeah, tell me, I miss those before times too. It's been a long time since we've seen a line, and we can't wait to get back to be able to see those again.
I can't wait to stand online, because the stuff that you guys are putting out is genuinely some of the best in town. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah, virtual lines just aren't the same.
Right. Yeah. The hoppiness doesn't really come through Zoom, Hamoud, I'd like to turn to you. Don't Look Back is it's become something of a Richmond institution. But pandemic aside, you guys haven't been without your bumps along the way. From a fire in Carytown that could have certainly spelled the end. And like the Phoenix, you guys have come back. You brought breathed new life into the Triple location. You now have a location on South Side. but don't let me tell the whole story here. Tell us a little bit about how you decided to get into the taco business. First of all, and how are things going these days?
Definitely been a saga for sure. We're kind of the thing that won't die, fire, plague, I don't know what's next, like locust or something.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of how I got into it, a lot of these things are just sort of, I don't know, a mix of fate and just keeping your eyes open for opportunity. And when I first moved to Richmond in 2005, I did an extensive remodel of the old New York Deli, and 11 months actually, and reopened that in 2006. I was a minor investor there, but I kind of ran the show. Since then, I've sold out of there, but still going strong over there, still amazing Reubens and all of that. But yeah, one day, just for fun, I was doing a DJ night, if you can call that, on a slow night, where I was playing like Billy Joel stuff on an iPod back when there was iPods.
Right.
And business partner over there is like, oh, I got to show you something across the street. I didn't think it was anything. I thought it was like a joke. And he went over and tapped on the window, and it was Viva Mexico at the time. And owner at the time appeared out of the shadows. And eventually I negotiated taking over that spot. And I didn't know what I was going to put in there. I was thinking, maybe I would do stick with tacos, maybe not. And right around the same time, a few different people told me, if you're considering tacos, you need to try Nate's Taco Truck. And he actually had Nate's Taco stop over on 2nd Street, like a brick and mortar thing for lunch tacos. And I went there, it was amazing. I have no talent for food myself. We'd go out of business if I was in the kitchen. And by chance, I told him my story, and I got a lease, and he said, I'd like to help you out. I thought he was just being friendly.
Right.
And the next week there was an article on, I don't know if it was BizSense. It might've been an older Richmond business news site. And he was announcing that he was closing, and it was like it was written for me almost. He was emotional. He had just had his 2nd kid at the time, and for the first time he's considering working, with someone else. And it worked out.
The rest is history, right?
Yeah, and we did have that fire that took us down, and minor setback, kitchen fire back in 2017, and it ended up leading to 10 months later opening up in the triple location, and then about 5 months after that, 5-6 months later, in Forest Hill, and here we are.
Well, I know that we're all eager for things to get back to normal so that I can come visit for lunch for sure. But I think as we have this conversation, I'm eager to hear each of you just sort of how you've navigated and kept the lights on, but also really from sort of a funding standpoint. I'd like to turn to Jenny as we look at the lending environment out there. I mean, the cash infusion from the federal government has been massive. The SBA, just through the PPP program, issued over 4 million loans, just over $224 billion out into the economy. And I know that pandemic or not, business lending doesn't stop. And I think a key critical difference in sort of the economic downturn that we've seen here versus the Great Recession of 07 and 08 is that there wasn't a liquidity crunch. You were able to continue issuing loans as long as people, qualified for them. What does the last 12 months look like? Has it been a slowdown on the commercial side? Has it been steady? What does that environment look like right now?
So we have the banking part in itself has been very busy. We've shifted a lot of the regular banking services, obviously, to our drive-throughs and electronic banking, but that has not diminished a lot of the lending needs. We're still doing a lot of the business loans, personal loans. Obviously, we had an abundance of the PPP loans. We had to submit, to SBA for approval. So we saw such a huge influx because there were numerous banks that were not participating in those PPP loans. So not only were we assisting our current customers, but we were also assisting non-customers, because obviously, however our businesses do in the community affects us as a whole. It doesn't matter, if they're a customer or not. We want everybody to succeed. If our community is doing well, we do well. So it's very important that we're there to support our community. So, we did see a huge influx of loans in general. And of course, mortgages were going through the roof. The mortgage industry is thriving. The housing market is thriving right now. So with those low interest rates, our lenders worked nonstop for months and months and months, which, certainly has been a wonderful thing, exhausting, but wonderful. So we have certainly seen, I would say, a greater influx on the loan side, probably than some of the other products.
Yeah.
The merchant side, we saw a huge influx with contractors. We saw a huge influx with home and garden stores, some of those. Obviously, a lot of our retail and hospitality and restaurants had to close for quite a while. So we saw a downside for them for quite a while, but we're starting to see that pick back up. Some of the restaurants quickly adapted to takeout and were able to keep moving forward while they slowed down. They still were able to stay steady and keep paying the bills and moving forward. So it's been interesting to see the differences in the different industries, the different products, because obviously nothing's been completely steady. We've either been extremely increased on the loan side, or, some of the other things may have slowed down quite a bit. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah. Well, may we all live in interesting times, right?
Absolutely.
Brian, I as someone who was overseeing being a recipient of a PPP loan and making sure that your staff is getting paid and that inventory is getting paid for, all of those things. What have the last 12 months been like from your perspective of just watching that bottom line and keeping the lights on? And specifically, if you could tell us, how was your experience with the PPP program?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Definitely over the past year. So we're lucky we have great, great partners at Atlantic Union, which is, where we do our banking, and we were able to get, we had our PPP funds probably within, 3 or 4 days of their portal going live. I was ready and kind of just waiting to press the button when that went live. So, kudos to them to be able to get me to the point where I was able to prepare everything beforehand. But it was critical because, it was important to us to be able to keep our staff on board and paid, because we have really, really great people, and we didn't want, we didn't know how long this was going to last. We didn't want to have to let anybody go because we didn't want to, lose the people that we had. And, we were very lucky that, with the exception of some, people that only had, 1 or 2 shifts every now and then and had another job somewhere else, we've been able to keep everybody on payroll. But that PPP loan was critical because you talked about bad timing for a pandemic. November 2019, we opened our second location down in Norfolk, and we're in the middle of the build out of our Forest Hill location, which ended up opening in November 2020. So you talk about, having sunk a lot of money into a location that you only had a few months, of seeing activity there, and being in the middle of a project that we weren't going to stop. We couldn't
Right.
stop in the middle of it, and seeing what it's like now, I'm glad we didn't. But the PPP loan was absolutely critical. in order to do that and keep us on our feet. In addition to the other changes that we made in our business model to keep us going. I didn't normally have to do weekly cash management, and for the past year I've had to do that. So my job role changed dramatically as well. To less analytics and more, how do we pay these bills?
Yeah. I mean, I can almost imagine going to just like an envelope system, from sort of high-minded finance to just like how many dollars are in the drawer. And
Yeah.
I certainly don't envy the challenge of that kind of a transition. And hopefully, that light at the end of the tunnel means that we get back to a much more normal operating procedure. Hamoud, I'd like to turn to you, and I know that you had started sort of the Don't Look Back Club to help. I thought that was a really innovative way to try to support your staff and stay top of mind with people. If you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about what that is, and then if you could comment on the PPP loan process for you. I know it's been critical in keeping roughly 75 people in your in your good graces, all of those things.
Well, the club thing was, you have to go back to that one weekend in the middle of March. I think we all remember that weekend where suddenly things shifted dramatically. It went from, okay, we can keep things going. This is scary, but maybe if we just clean extra hard, people, companies were putting out, posts on Instagram or press releases about, we're just going to scrub really hard to, okay, it's out of control, that we need a full stop sort of thing. And I remember that Monday I had actually two separate, I had a meeting at South Plan before opening, and I had a training session at the Triple location planned before opening. And as I was driving to them, it hit me that we can't do this. We can't open. And the most crushing thing about it was, in minutes, 65, I believe it was, people being out of work. And at that point, we didn't know that CARES Act or any of that. None of that was in place. So I was able to, that was a Monday. By Friday, switch our template on Squarespace from a restaurant-focused one to an online shop-focused one. And instead of doing a GoFundMe, because a lot of people were scared then. Yeah. So to ask for donations when a lot, the reverberations weren't just in restaurants, it was in other industries as well. I mean, certainly we were hit harder than your average industry, but a lot of people were afraid about the future. It was basically, we were going to offer value. So for $25, you get 10% off for a year from when we reopen. You get a tote bag, a Don't Look Back Club shot glass, et cetera. And if you spend a little more, you get a shirt made by this artist. His name is Barf, his artist name. He did this amazing rendition of Action Comics #1, but basically a triple version, Don't Look Back, with 8-ball and all of that. And so we're able to raise a lot of funds. Every cent of profit went to the staff, and it was a great morale booster for the staff. And at the same time, and we still have people coming in getting 10% off. Yeah, come in once a week, so it also provided value for the customers. So that was a nice little. So much of this, we keep talking about the economic consequences, which you can't avoid, but there's the psychological component that you see it. I see it in the staff every day. To this, even now we're still trying to navigate this. You see it in customers every day. Everyone's still trying to figure things out. How God, one customer a couple of weeks ago came in, just lost it on one of my staff.
Jeez.
Right, opened the door, started cursing out for no reason. Just, and you knew it wasn't about whatever she was complaining about, is about other things, and just,
Yeah.
So you can't underestimate the value of seeing the community support us, during that time. As for the second part of your question, I mean, PPP, I don't know how to total lifeline, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
I can't, without the PPP, the first and second round, without the ERC changes, without Richmond Recovers, that was certainly helpful. The second one, they did a grant. All these were true lifelines we wouldn't operate without. The Rebuild Virginia grant didn't get a chance at that. That was I could gripe about that for a little bit, the way it was handled and communicated, but that won't really matter if this new one comes through, this the restaurant revitalization fund. If it gets funded enough, then that will all be moot and we'll be in a very good place.
Good. Yeah, we're paying attention to that restaurant revitalization fund. I know the SBA is trying to roll that out in the next 2 weeks or so, is what the timeline looks like.
Yeah, I believe that it's got about 28 billion in funding. From what I've been told, it needs about 180 billion in funding. So we'll see if that happens, because if that goes through, then certainly we'll be in a good place.
All right, so we've sort of, no pun intended here, but we've done our look back on sort of this last 12 months. But I think that the word that I keep hearing from economists, from business owners, is pent up demand. This idea that that the roaring 2020s might be around the corner. And so I'm always sort of curious what the indicators look like, from individual standpoint. Jenny, sitting where you are at Old Point National Bank, you have an interesting perspective in terms of like new loan generation, some of that economic activity. Not fully asking you to gaze into the crystal ball here, but what do the next 6 months look like from sort of the movement that you're seeing right now?
We're seeing increase in businesses right now with, their transactions. We're starting to see some of the business owners now talking to our lenders more about what their options are. Loans are still at an active rate right now. So we are still seeing some of that. I see a lot more of the numbers on the merchant side, which makes it very interesting, obviously, because it shows those true transactions that those companies are running through. So, as I mentioned, we're starting to see some of the restaurants being able to reopen. They're doing a little bit more business. People are obviously getting more comfortable going out once they've had their vaccinations. So we are seeing that uptick, which has really helped. Mortgages obviously are still going strong. We're seeing the doctors and the dentists and, some of those companies now, they're obviously taking patients back. They have decreased quite a bit. Obviously, they're spacing out their patients a little bit more. So they're not taking as many patients at one time as they used to. So, they're a little bit slower than they were in the past, but they're still hanging on and going strong. So we are seeing that uptick on the economy itself, as in if we keep going the rate that we're at, next year obviously should look so much better than it has. We're still trying to communicate with all of our customers to see where they need assistance. We went and helped, like, Hamuda was saying, we added so many online features for our companies to take payments, that in itself, where they weren't taking electronic payments, that has helped significantly. Obviously, churches were hit very, very hard. If they were not taking electronic payments, they weren't getting any money in hardly. You might have some that were sending checks in, but honestly, their funds decreased significantly. So we're starting to see some of those reopen. So they're starting to get some of those funds back in and things like that. Nonprofits took a huge hit. So, now some of those are starting back up. They're starting to see some increase in things. So the economic turn looks good and promising. So hopefully, we stay on this track and things continue to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Hamuda, as obviously, when it becomes safe to practically do so, there is an eagerness for folks to get out there. That can't be anything but good for business. I think one of the more interesting aspects of the pandemic have been some of these like second order effects where, I think we were all sort of scratching our heads at one point, like there's a toilet paper shortage, how does an airborne virus, who could have predicted toilet paper? And I think some of the impacts of the supply chain in terms of being able to get the stuff you need to run a restaurant. Are you continuing to see any challenges around that, or has sourcing, all of your inventory, has that sort of worked itself out, and do you see any challenges going forward there?
I mean, I really haven't had any issues. I mean, at the very beginning, maybe a little bit here and there, but we're also one of those restaurants that opened really late. Like we waited till mid-July to reopen at Southside, and our Scott's Addition location, Triple, didn't reopen till first week of August. So a lot of stuff had sorted itself out by then.
Yeah,
we definitely took the safe route. We thought maybe this, thought the pandemic would calm down by then, and it sort of did, and it came back, and didn't know it would be these full waves. So, but we tried to wait as long as we could.
Yeah,
and also just honestly being employee focused. They were getting CARES Act money to sit at home and not be put at risk. So why rush them out there to be put at risk and to make the same amount of money or less in some cases? So
right. And that's actually an interesting thing. I've heard, the influx of money, through, federal support for unemployment, and some of these stimulus checks, some folks have argued it's a disincentive to return to work, and that some, tipped work and lower wage work may be difficult to fill some of those positions. Have you seen anything in the labor market that's making it difficult to find help, or has that sort of been a non-issue?
Well, don't quote me on this, but I believe the CARES Act back then was 600 a week on top of unemployment. So I believe it was beefier then. So it could have been problematic. When you saw someone working at big box shops, a Lowe's or a fast food chain, a lot of it was because the employer was using leverage and like, okay, if you're not going to have a job when your CARES Act money runs out. So
right.
Again, we didn't take that approach. So I didn't want to mess with the staff's money, especially at such a scary time. So we were able to work with that. As for where we're at now, I think there is a shortage in the restaurant labor force, if you want to call it that. It seems like a weird term, but I guess that is the correct one.
Yeah.
Carrie Pfeiffer did a great article on Times Dispatch, richmond.com, a couple of weeks back, just on this actually, where she touched on it. I believe the number was there's a shortage of 5,000 or so hospitality workers in the greater Richmond area. I think it's a combination of factors. I think, yes, there is some unemployment benefits out there. I think some people that did restaurants before don't want to do them anymore. She touched on that as well. There are some customer issues.
And you alluded to that
about, someone getting yelled at, one of my staff for no reason a couple of weeks ago. And for some reason, we've decided in this country that you're allowed to yell at hospitality or retail workers and they have to smile and take it. They're not allowed to respond in kind, right?
Right.
You know, it becomes kind of dehumanizing. At what point does it stop, right? You know, how much can they take? You know, certainly we, you know, ask someone to leave, but at what point, where's the line? So, so I think the shortage is a number of things. What I find interesting is it's sort of balanced out now where we are in the middle of our second round of PPP funding. So we are able to offer higher wages. We're at the $15 minimum wage, and a number of employees make substantially more than that. You know, that was the big, you know, political debate, a couple months back with Biden got it shot down. But even when he was pushing for the $15 minimum wage, that was for 4 years from now, right? It was done in stages. Was it 4 years? We're doing that right now, and I want to do everything in my power to keep that going past this, you know, our PPP end date. But what I find interesting is, you know, I think a lot of restaurants are in the same situation that I'm in, where it's like the wages are so much higher now that we're offering than before, but it's still hard to find good help, especially when we decide to open up more. And again, we are playing it safe. We are not, you know, Northern extended the alcohol curfew to midnight, March 1st. We kept ours at 10 because until my staff is vaccinated, totally, like, why push it? You know, let's, you know, ethics rules our decisions, not, you know, money. So, but I think a lot of restaurants are looking like, but we're offering so much more than before. We used to, you know, be $9 an hour for a line cook, and now we're offering, you know, 16 an hour for a line cook and 15 for a dish. Well, you know, everyone's doing that right now because it's covered by the PPP.
Right.
So, fortunately, you know, we've been able to have luck with our staffing so far, and I think that's because of where we started this, you know, conversation, which is we've been around a long time. The community knows us. People are smart. They see that most employees last at a restaurant anywhere from 3 months. You're lucky if it's a year, where they come and they don't look back and they see people that have been with us since 2012. Like, that only happens when there's a culture of mutual respect and where things are working.
I would just applaud your focus on, you know, paying your folks a living wage, looking out for their safety. You know, I think that's critical, and you know, part of that secret sauce in your success is having those good people there.
Well, a key time I think is going to be when the funds run out.
Yeah.
And I want more than anything to be able to maintain that minimum wage. Because let's be honest, I mean, I don't even know how I don't even, you know, living wage is actually a strange, I mean, is 15 an hour living? We've been talking about 15 an hour being a living wage for so many years. It probably isn't anymore, you know?
Right.
I think I could take a lot of pride, and I think everyone that works at my places could take a lot of pride in the fact if we can maintain it. So it's going to be a question of, can the funding go on for a little bit longer? How do these transition stages go? There's going to be a new dynamic. There's already kind of a paradigm shift happening within the restaurant industry before COVID. And I think COVID is sort of accelerating things. There's not going to be you know, such a dramatic difference in wages, where before it used to be all the wages are in management, ownership, bartenders, and servers, and then this dramatic gap between support staff and kitchen staff.
Right.
Salaried kitchen manager. Okay, I'm giving you a salary of $35,000 or $40,000 a week, but you better work 60 hours a week. You know, that was already, people were realizing that wasn't fair, but I feel like the pandemic's sort of accelerating, this sort of soul searching and realizing that that's not going to happen anymore. And we need to make things more fair across the board.
Yeah. That's a good transition to a question that I want to pose to Jenny, and feel free to weigh in, Hamuda. I think that these times of crisis, really can be a cause to examine our core values, and sort of look at why we do what we do. And you alluded to this a bit earlier in the hour, but talking about those values of the bank that you work for, how have those really shown up in the work that you all are doing? And I know it's easy to get lost in talking about big numbers or interest rates and all of that, but at the end of the day, you're talking about businesses and individuals and hopes and dreams and aspirations. What has that sort of introspective element been like at Old Point for you all?
So we try to advise our customers and our clients basically to plan for the unexpected. Having great partners to work with is so vital to any business. So I think part of those core values is knowing that the people you work with can help your business thrive, or if you don't have the right partners, then you certainly can feel that pinch, when unexpected things happen. Having a great accountant, having a great payroll partner such as Dominion. I mean, Dominion put these fantastic seminars on to tell everybody what's going on, to advise on all these different changes, to know what to expect, what was going to happen. Things like that make such a difference during times of crisis. So having those partners of the attorney, so if you have to make difficult decisions, you can get the correct advice from somebody that will lead you down the right path. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions and it's very emotional. So it's hard to make those decisions. And sometimes we have to have that right perspective outside of that zone to help us make those decisions. So having the right banking partners, that really makes a huge difference. Somebody you can pick up the phone and say, hey, we're feeling a little tight right now. What's your best advice? Should, we take out a loan? Should, what would you advise us to do? So having those partners in place to assist you through the good times, the hard times, the crazy, unexpected times, I think is vital to any business. Just knowing that you have people in your corner to help you along the way. I think that makes such a huge difference. So having the core value of just helping our customers in every aspect. When I sit down with somebody, the first thing I tell them, especially new businesses, get a good accountant, get a good attorney. You need a good payroll company to help you, and a fantastic banking partner. Those are going to be your lifeline for this business to help you grow. So really, that is what we try to focus on, and making sure that, these businesses have the tools to help in any situation.
That's great advice. And yeah, I think that's one of those things that so often folks get into starting a business because they're passionate about, the operation or the product that they make, and you not thinking about some of those sort of professional relationships. That network of support is so critical. Hamoud, I'm curious if someone came to you and said, man, you've been successful in the restaurant industry, you've weathered multiple challenges. I'm thinking about opening up my own thing. I want to make a burger shop. What advice would you give to somebody? Is it, are you a glutton for punishment, or, what's your take on that?
So I don't want to stand in the way of anyone's dreams. And, I actually had someone message me. He used to DJ one of my places a while back, and he actually messaged me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and he wants to open up a bar in New Orleans. And I had to be like, look, I did a disclaimer. Like, I don't know if I'm the best person. I've been doing this so long. I might be a little cynical, but once I did the disclaimer and he said, he wants to go forward with it and he has a good opportunity, a cheap lease on a space, etc. Then I proceeded to give him what advice I could after doing this for almost 20 years. What advice? I mean, it's a tricky one. I mean, if you really love this industry and you have a high tolerance for risk and you're well funded, not the, hey, I've got $10,000, I'm going to do a restaurant.
Right.
But every single time I've done a restaurant, I'm like, this time I'm going to make sure I truly budget. No, not a single time has it hit budget, and I don't do large places or like crazy. There's nothing fancy when you come into my spot. I mean, we don't look like can, or there's no marble flown in from France or Italy or wherever. You're looking at, you're looking at not tens of thousands. You're looking at, $250,000 potentially,
Right.
Because you also want to get through those. The first 2 years, a lot of times, is just keeping your head above water,
Right.
I guess the advice I gave him, I could put here, which is just kind of focus on the parts you love, right? Like, he really just wanted to open a place to be a DJ. So I was like, if you don't love the food part, maybe outsource the food part, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't feel like you have to do everything. But yes, the restaurant business right now, I mean, I feel in the short to mid-term, it's going to experience a renaissance. I think people can't wait. I think when we're looking at October or whatever it's going to be, end of summer, fall, certainly 2022, we're going to see a renaissance. We're going to break sales records. I see that. It's also going to be very difficult. There's going to be awkward transition. There's going to be some customers saying, hey, I've been vaccinated, I don't need to wear my mask, fights. Again, that piece by Carrie Pfeiffer was wonderful because it spoke about some of these things where, sometimes that customer doesn't realize it's not just about you, that employees,
Right.
seeing hundreds of people a day. So if everyone's not wearing a mask, like, do you value my life, sort of thing? And that sounds dramatic, but that's what it is. So there's going to be a awkward transition. It will be a well-funded transition, especially if this RRF grant comes through.
Mm-hmm.
But then I see a true renaissance happening in the midterm. In the long term, I'm a little worried because the funding will go. I think there's certain dynamics in play. I don't want to, our time will be up soon. I don't want to speak for an hour on this. That I think is going to benefit more of the larger companies, the multi-restaurant group, the corporations and the companies that, have 5, 10, 15 locations. To speak on what Jennifer was saying, have a good lawyer. Like right now, these days, just having an open bar when you serve alcohol, every day is almost sort of
It's a minefield.
You're exposed, and I'm not a big company that has a lawyer on retainer,
Right.
I don't have an HR department. Speaking with Brian was great. Vale, he's our finance guy. Like I have to be the finance, I have to be all of these things. So I think a lot of, and especially when the funding goes down, but we're still trying to pay our staff these wages, and I'm not trying to sell $7 tacos, the profit's going to be next to nil, which people like me are like, why am I working 80 hours a week
this again?
for
Right.
this? So I think those larger companies are going to sort of take over, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of dynamics in play that people aren't necessarily seeing. This RRF thing, if it comes through, I think some restaurants are going to see it as an opportunity to get a last payday for themselves and their staff before they close, it's almost like selling before you sell.
Right.
And especially if the passion isn't there anymore. And I think other restaurants that are more bullish and are in a growing stage are going to use that capital to either acquire these other restaurants or to buy other locations. But going back to your point, one advice I would give is there's a bunch of empty shells now, restaurant shells available for lease that you don't have to pay $1 for to take over. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, you would have to, a lot of times, if you wanted that location, do an asset purchase. I mean, just to take over the lease that now you can get in for free. So at least there's not that barrier to entry. I mean, I've been a party to transactions over 200,000 just to sell the lease, the piece of paper.
Yeah.
So at least there's not that barrier to entry,
So I think that if I were to sort of summarize here, make sure that your passion is in, if entrepreneurship is your game, make sure your heart is in it. Surround yourself with good people in terms of, having that backstop and capacities that aren't your specialty, outsource the best and brightest.
And I missed my opportunity to give the Dominion shout out like Jennifer did there. Yeah, your partners are key. Dominion showed up for me. Kevin for sure. Scott's just checked in on me just to see how I'm doing. Tracy helped me with the ERC thing just to understand it. The time I thought I understood it. I didn't realize the timing of it, and no one tells you that stuff.
Yeah.
The timing of the ERC with how you use it versus the PUP. I mean, you're talking about thousands or tens of thousands, and there's no instruction manual.
Yeah.
It's definitely not being like put out there in an easy fashion. And US Foods is one of my largest vendor. Yesterday, Brian Kirby, he did a 40-minute session with me, helping me, walking me through the RRF thing. Like he went out of his way.
Yeah.
Whereas the big bank I bank with, I won't throw their name out here, has, not the communication has been zero. It's been automated emails. And when I do talk to my assigned banker, he can't even access the big funds. All he can talk about is, my regular credit card for the business credit card. Like he actually, it's actually comical, he'll call in and check in on me and I'm like, okay, well, when do you expect me to get the forgiveness application? And oh, I don't know. Call the 1-800 number, and it's like, so definitely I feel like the core values of your partners have been highlighted in this.
Well, guys, I want to say, we're getting close to time, and I do just want to extend a sincere thank you for taking the time to tell us sort of about, how you've navigated the last 12 months and sort of your outlook on the future. Jenny, I'd love to turn to you, and if you've got, I sort of think of them as like my pandemic stories. It's like in 5 years we'll tell whoever will listen. What did you do during the pandemic? What was the shining spot where you thought to get through this together or something like that? And then please tell folks how they can connect with Old Point National Bank.
Sure. I think some of the big positive takeaways obviously is the technology. I think our technology has just improved significantly for everyone. I mean, we're talking, most people did not use Zoom or Teams or, work remotely, and look at the things that we have accomplished by just within a matter of months being able to work remotely, assist our customers, I think that another success is all of the businesses we were able to assist during this time with the PPP loans. We quickly enforced a electronic system to be able to apply for those PPP loans online. We have the forgiveness applications online. We have dedicated people that are assisting the customers walking through those applications, helping with those forgiveness apps, talking them through this whole process, seeing what else we can do to assist. I mean, I can't even describe how fantastic our lenders and our branch managers are, like how much work that they've put in to just help everybody, customers, non-customers, anybody that they could assist during this time. Because let's face it, it's been insanity for a year now. I mean, trying to just find our way through it has just been a crazy time. So I think our biggest successes obviously are the technology. We've improved our technology even more to assist our customers, to assist the employees. Old Point has been fantastic with their employees, making sure they're keeping everyone safe, so I would say, even though it's been a crazy time, it's also shown how well, like, Old Point has treated their customers, their employees. So that in itself, I think, is a huge success. Old Point, we have a website. You can certainly go on there. They have contact numbers. I'm always reachable. I'm happy to help whoever. If you don't have a banking partner, and if you need a great banking partner, I can certainly lead you in the right direction. We have people in different regions that can assist for any need that you have, lending, banking, whatever the case might be. So certainly reach out to us. We're always here to help, always.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for taking an hour out of your morning to be here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hamuda, any high points in the last 12 months, or maybe any lessons learned that'll help guide you, in the months and years to come?
I think not just for from a business standpoint. I think as individuals, the biggest positive takeaway the last 12 plus months have been has been, I think we've all had a chance to kind of sit back and take stock of what makes us happy. What do we want to do for a living? How do we want to, spend our remaining days, or what do we want to do for a living in the short term, long term? I think it comes down to I heard it put succinctly the other day, and I really liked it, like living a life more authentic to you, right? Like whatever that is.
Yeah.
And people are just really had a chance to take time to examine what that means. And sometimes it changes, and I can see it in my staff, like there are certain people right now that were really into it before the pandemic, and now they're kind of mailing it in while they try to figure out their next step, which is fine. I totally get it. Right. Pay your bills and figure out something that's going to make you happy long term. And there's others, and just again, using my staff as an example, who are rededicated now, who are more into it because having that time away, they realize that they missed it, and they, this is what I want to do. And also you've seen where there's crisis, there's opportunity, right? There's a lot of shifting happening. We are on the verge of a big spike. We're trying to hold it back right now. Really, I don't promote on Instagram these days, because that could invite crowd control issues. So literally we're trying to stem the tide. So some people that are into it and, they're smart and realize this is about to go this way. There's gonna be a lot of opportunity. But I think on a very personal level, everyone's just having a chance to kind of take stock. I heard, someone talk about how they realized 5 years too late, they should have left their job. They're too busy for those 5. Like they're too busy to realize they'd overstayed their welcome. Like you're just too busy. So I feel like it's given a chance for people to sort of take stock of things and the bigger picture stuff for their life. You know, we're not immortal. So what do we want to do with our life? What is going to be, are you living like your authentic self right now? And I think that is the main positive.
Well, that is a good note to go out on. How can folks, you just said you're stemming the tide. So we'll say in a month or so, go to Don't Look Back.
Yeah. And I mean, I do handle a good chunk of our social accounts. So don'tlookback.co is our Instagram, not .com. The domain was way too expensive. So don'tlookback.co. So if you ever message us on there, there's a good chance I'm the one that will reply if you need a read.
Great. Well, Hamuda, thank you so much for being with us today. I've enjoyed chatting with you. I also want to extend a thank you to Brian Kirkpatrick, Director of Finance for the Vale Brewery, celebrating their 5-year anniversary. Thanks for being here for part of the conversation. We do appreciate it. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate that very much. Without further ado, I'll let everybody get on to their lunch hour. But thanks for tuning in. My name is Kevin Wilson, and this has been The Beacon. Everybody have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye, guys.